Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming us back. We are continuing our work on innovative programs, and so tonight, as Dr. Salah shared, we're going to be talking about career-focused education, also known as career technical education. We're actually going to get into that a little bit this evening. So, career technical education, and we're really looking at a JK-12, our junior kindergarten through 12th grade programming and pathways. So to start off here, like last time, taking a step back to last year, our strategic plan 1.0 work, we had a goal statement for innovative programming. The Huron Valley Schools will develop innovative programs designed to create enrichment focused on career technical education and create a learning environment that maximizes instructional minutes to create greater learning opportunities for students. So that was our overarching goal for innovative programs. And within that, and several of our committee members are here this evening, developed objective statements. And one of the objectives, objective 1.3, is that the Huron Valley Schools will expand career technical and vocational skills, known as CTE, by increasing exposure and learning opportunities in all grade levels. So taking that as an objective statement, the team has been working on a vision for what things will look like, what opportunities we have as a district going forward within career technical or career focused education. So this evening I want to introduce a couple folks that are here with us. So Scott Rolando is our career technical education coordinator for the district. Many of you know Scott Rolando. Megan Weeks is our fine arts coordinator and is also our theater director here at Milford High School. Connie Gilbert is a teacher leader in the TLT department, and so we'll be co-presenting this evening as we go forward. So I am going to first turn it over to Scott Rolando.
Thanks. So career-focused education is just that. It's education-focused on what kind of career can you get when you get out of Huron Valley Schools after your graduation, so on and so forth. There is a slight difference between career-focused education and career technical education. Career-focused education is considered K through 12 focused information-wise. What are we going to do, careers and stuff. CTE is career technical education, is a lot more geared towards secondary 9-12 overall basis with the different courses that are run specifically at the high school level, business, marketing, different things like that. But we look at CFE, we talk about everything from junior kindergarten all the way up through high school and stuff. And these are just some examples we've pulled from our Friday forums from the past couple of years about just some of the different focuses and different things that have happened within the career-focused education realm here in Huron Valley. So again, career and technical education, or CTE, is education that directly prepares students for a high-wage, high-demand career. Okay, that's what it is. There are some differentiations for people, specifically people who teach, teachers who teach CTE courses versus the course itself also. So a CTE teacher not only has to have a degree in education, like all teachers, okay, and be highly qualified. We also have to have a set number of hours in industry, meaning that you have to have some experience in the field you're coming from. Okay, to be able to teach within the area, to get what they call a vocational education certificate. A long time ago, this all used to be called vocational education. Now they've kind of branched it out a little bit into other things, so if you want to put a history cap kind of on that. And the teacher responsibilities, that we have to go out as CTE teachers, then develop industry connections and partnerships. Okay, we have to go out and find those different types of people within the industries for the classes that we're teaching, okay, to be able to connect with that. Stay current on regulations and competencies in the field of study. We have to stay current on those things. It's part of the deal. As so for a lot of our funding, which we'll talk about and stuff a little bit from the state and the federal government, we have to stay current and we have to stay up to date on what is going on now within those specific courses and programs. Go to conferences, do different things, talk to our talk about our industry specific advisory boards that are there and things like that. And finally, also completion of state and federal compliance documentation. So on top of all the other normal Monday through Friday teaching that every teacher does, we also have to have meetings with different groups from industry and different careers. We also have to do the federal and state compliance paperwork that goes along with that to be able to get the funding that goes for the courses. And that's just for the teacher. Okay, so when you flip to the course side of the perspective, there are set competencies, which is where the state and federal government are going to these competencies for classroom instruction. Okay, what are we doing within the classroom? Type of the laboratory learning, so whatever the laboratory, the kind of the real life, if you want to call it, experience that goes along with it, and work-based learning, which is also the real life experience that plays into it too. Where can we go to get students? Can they get experience for in the real world? What type of deal? What type of an engineering course talk to engineers? Can they go to engineering stuff? I teach video production, so can we go also out there to do video production and see what it's like in the world of video production? Okay, and also student leadership. So there's a student leadership component to all of this too that is required by the state and the federal government through these programs called CTSOs, which are career technical student education, career technical student organizations. Sorry. The biggest one that you may have heard of would be DECA. Which used to be Distributive Education Clubs of America. It just stands for DECA now. It doesn't have a standing name anymore. But that's probably the biggest. Another one would be like Virtual Enterprises International, or VEI. We also have other ones called like NTHS, which is the National Technical Honor Society. So all of those programming that goes along with that. The course also has to have industry-specific advisory boards. So there's not like one board for all of CTE. I have a video production board. Meg has a theater board. We have marketing boards. We have an accounting board. For every class we teach, we have an industry-specific board where people advise us to what is new and what we should be teaching within our classes, okay, along the route. And then also for the class, there's also completion of state and federal compliance documentation. We have to do follow-up surveys. The classes do. Each individual class and teachers have to do examples. We do follow-up surveys where we call Huron Valley graduates and find out what they're doing in the field with their vocational education, their career technical stuff in the past, and take a survey and submit that to the state, okay, across the board for that. So that's kind of how it breaks down if you want to look at it from a CTE, from the career technical education perspective at the secondary level. So there are little difference between Michigan career pathways and the U.S. Department of Education career pathways. There are 6 in both ones, but as you can see, there's a little bit of difference. We follow the Michigan ones, obviously, the 6 that are on the left, and then the U.S. Department of Education ones have the ones on the right. So there's a little more there. They flesh theirs out a little bit more and have more things involved with it. But Michigan's kind of career pathways are the 6 on the left there. So in the process, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at when we talk about career pathways, future down along the lines. So, and then I'm going to hand this one over to Connie.
So we wanted to give you a brief overview of the progression of career readiness experiences that our students already are having in Huron Valley. At the elementary level, the goal is really just exposure to different professionals and different careers that are out there. So as you can see, kind of tiny here, but as little as our junior kindergartners doing some dramatic play, dressing up as different professionals, to classroom sets, classroom libraries where the books may have different careers that kids can read about, get excited about, to specific skills taught in our tech classes that may expose them to the early beginnings of coding using our 3D printers. And this is the first time that they are also introduced to a program called Zello. That's the one up there that begins with X. This is our online career readiness program that students engage with at each level that really helps them build self-knowledge and kind of identify where their interests are, their strengths are, and begin to build a portfolio that will help guide them to a career path. And so at the middle school level, as students start going to our middle schools, the goal is really here that we want them to start exploring those different career pathways that Scott mentioned before. And we do this very intentionally right now with some of our elective offerings. We have some required electives that are either 10-week or semester-long courses, and we have some choice electives that fall in some of those career pathways. So students are exposed to engineering, communication arts, video production, digital technology as some examples. We're hoping here that they will just have maybe a spark of interest in one of these so that they might dive deeper into that at the high school level. And that's where we're really focusing on engagement. At the high school level, we have the formal CTE programs that Scott mentioned that students can take multiple classes in that career pathway. So how we show students that these opportunities exist, one way is through our course books. This is an example of something that's in a middle school course book that outlines 4 of the different career pathways and how our middle school programs offer that insight into what they could take at the high school level. So if students are like, wow, I really enjoyed the projects we were doing in digital technology, the middle school level, they can see, wow, I can really expand and engage in that at the high school level in these specific programs. At the high school level, this is a sample of pages that we may see in our high school course book that really gives a lot more information to the student of a potential 4-year plan that they could take. It gives sample elective offerings, as well as some enrichment opportunities or community involvement activities. Also listing potential careers that they may not have even thought of that exist in that pathway. And so right now we have a lot of awesome opportunities in the career focused education realm in Huron Valley, but of course we're always looking, where can we expand, dive deeper. And so an area that we're really excited about would be expanding our various career opportunity exposure systemically JK-12. So right now in the elementary realm, we have career focused days where maybe we have professionals coming in to talk to students, maybe authors are coming in, but we're really looking to add, like, how can we be systemic about it so that all of our elementary students are getting equal opportunity to see themselves in the different career pathways. And so some implementation considerations as far as that would just be maybe funding and for supplies and experiences, as well as really the coordination of that, and how can we really bring all those experiences to all of our elementary students.
And then looking at the next bullet, increasing community partnerships with work-based learning and career connections. So increasing our district connections with people like the Huron Valley Chamber of Commerce or the Highland White Lake Business Association or Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. How can we bring these people who are business owners, community members, people like that into our schools and talk to our kids about what they could do as a career from a business owner, and how to get those types of experiences, and what is it take to be an engineer? What does it take to be a marketer? Those types of things. Then go out, maybe get some experience, spend a day in a marketing office, spend a day at a television studio. What is it like to do all those things? And exploring these big business industry partnerships and opportunities at the secondary level. Again, continuing to explore those opportunities as we go. Implementation considerations, obviously we talked about funding. It's there, it's out there. I'm not going to leave it off the list. You know what I mean? For supplies and experiences and stuff. Staffing and coordination, again, like Connie mentioned earlier. Consistent opportunities for exposure at all buildings, and building this systemic idea of there's something at all buildings across the board. And then a core curriculum versus enrichment opportunities. Sometimes when we offer enrichment opportunities, sometimes we can kind of pull from a core curriculum a little bit. So it just depends on how you want to weigh that and what the feels are on that one. So. Future opportunities, exploring exploration for students at the middle school level with the addition of 2 new career pathways, the health sciences and natural resources and agri-science. So if you go back to the picture, well, don't go back to it, but the one I mentioned earlier with the 6 career pathways, our middle school curriculum, we do 4. There are a couple other ones that we touch on, but we could use some more exploration in the future. And then increasing engagement at the high school level with the amount and a variety of CTE programs offered. So increasing the amount is a future opportunity. What could we do? Fire science programs is very popular, coming up recently. CNA program, agri-science. What could we do in that area? And then personal finance, which is going to become a graduation requirement in the state of Michigan coming up here in the very near future. So how could we build that in? A lot of schools build personal finance into a CTE curriculum. So talk through the finance CTE portion. So how that all rolls out. Implementation considerations, again, qualified staffing, exploring creative scheduling and staffing. Can utilize this thing that they call the annual career authorization process, where someone who is an annual can get from business or industry can get annually career authorized and come and teach our students in a specific area. Okay, they can do it as long as they have so many hours over a 10-year period. They're able to come in and they're able to do that, and we can bring them in and teach that for a specific career pathway. And then campus-wide shared staffing, something if you look at like the Bogey Lake campus, talking about like somebody from the middle school could come teach over at the high school, or we could send some middle school students to the high school, or vice versa, to be able to share that staff to increase the opportunities for students that are out there, along with student interest and course enrollment numbers, and of course equipment, resources, and funding. And Meg wanted to talk a little bit here, Sue, so love it.
Love it.
Sorry, boss.
No, that's all right. We were just going to try to explain what it means to onboard a new class. So to take it kind of backwards, to have something of interest and engagement. So my theater arts program went through this process in about 2017. Wendy Schmidt was here, and she said, hey, I think there's a CTE code for this. We can get some funding. Let's look into it. So she started that process, and there's lots of paperwork and lots of pieces that we have to pull together, and she then checks to say, did I have the work hours, right? As Scott mentioned, you have to have those industry work hours, and it can't be me teaching theater class. That doesn't count. But me directing theater does because it's separate. So he's like, do you have 4,000 hours? And I said, that's funny. Yes, last year. So I was like, that's funny, Wendy. So that's how it kind of started, that we had good enrollment in those Intro to Theater Arts and play production courses. We knew we had that interest there, and it was then the kind of springboard to add a stagecraft class, which is all the technical theater elements, although all three sit inside the CTE code. And the kids go through what's called segments, which are in the curriculum, and then the completer course, which is meant to be more work-based learning. So all that came together from like 17 to, I think we onboarded it in 18. Took about a year to just get it organized. We also did this at Lakeland with the teacher that was there. And then at the same time, I didn't really know what was happening, but Marty and the TLT team was working on what was happening at the middle school in those offerings, in those career pathways, and they started to talk about comm arts. And then suddenly here we are going, wait a minute, we can start to build from that middle school a pathway into what's happening to a CTE program at the high school. So that was really exciting, and that's what we're hoping we can do with something like a CNA or fire science program. Can we get it at the high school? Is there interest? Is there funding? Are there teachers? Do we have all the pieces we need? And then what does that mean now at our middle school level that we can start to build that pathway in the health sciences or in the agri-sciences that maybe we're missing right now? So it's really some exciting stuff to really be able to build and pull that piece forward once we have all the money and staffing and all the things we need. So back to Scott.
Cool. So future opportunities, one of the big ones is expanding course sequences that lead to industry-based certifications at the high school level for completers. So the state of Michigan had to pick something that they wanted to do when we switched from, there's a federal law called the Carl Perkins law. This just provides funding for career technical education. So we went from version 4 to version 5. The state of Michigan had to pick something, and they picked industry-based certifications. And people are like, okay, that's great. Eventually, 10, 15, 20 years, I don't know, maybe 20 is a little far, but 10, 15 years down the road, every student that graduates from Huron Valley schools will have to have an industry-based certification. It will be required by the state to get there. So this is something for a future opportunity that we're looking at, that we are going to have to implement somewhere down the line. It's going to have to happen. And some of the examples, these are some examples of ones that we do or could do, like such as Microsoft Office Specialist. We would do that in like an introductory business course. Adobe Professional, which you could do in like my video production class. Automotive Excellence, which we do here in the auto program at Milford. If we ran a CNA program, you could do that. Project Management Institute and Infotech, which you could run in like a cybersecurity class, or something along those lines. Implementation considerations, funding for certification tests. There are very few games in town that do these types of testing, and the funding is significant to pay for some of them. So, and the resources needed for the certifications. What do we have to put into the programs and the classes to change so that the kids can get the certification that they need to get? And make it worthwhile, a robust type of certification across the board. Okay, qualified staffing and staff training. Again, coming back to this whole idea of staffing and stuff. Curriculum development from within courses for specific certifications. Again, as I mentioned, and then student interest and course enrollment numbers. You got to have an interest. There's got to be enough kids to teach a class. You know what I mean? So if you don't have enough kids to teach a class, you're not going to do that. So with these enrollment numbers and student interest, you got to have those things to get there for the expanding the CTE certifications piece. And then hand it back to John.
Thank you so much. So again, as you reflect on career-focused education from a JK-12 perspective, you can see there's a lot of things that we're doing right now in Huron Valley, but there are a lot of opportunities as we look forward to what we want to do as a school district. I think that there's a lot of things we can celebrate. Our kids have exposure to a lot of different things, but we do see opportunities. And we know that when we talk about career technical education, the industry is always changing. How we prepare our kids today for a future tomorrow is always evolving. And so the things that you heard Scott share about those processes, having advisory councils within each area is really important going forward. I think the other thing we really wanted to make sure everybody here understood was the complexity that goes into staffing and supporting the resources of a career technical education. So it's not just having a teaching certificate to be qualified to teach in a CTE program. It requires that vocational certification, the professional work hours outside of the program, and then it also requires that enrollment. So how many students you have in a particular program really determine whether or not we're going to be able to offer that program. So while there is funding available, and you talk about Perkins, you talk about vocational funding that comes from the state, there are a number of costs that go into these programs. Think about an auto shop and the costs that go into supporting the resources, the supplies, the materials in that program. And so there's a lot of considerations in terms of resources needed, both human resources and also material resources to have a successful program. It goes back to our mission, inspiring and building futures one student at a time, and we really feel like this program going forward gets us to meeting that mission. So thank you very much for your attention this evening, and we're happy to take any questions.